Half-Life 2 is undoubtedly one of the most important games for the PC platform. Valve's second child, following their first game back in 1998, was meant to evolve and innovate many of the design philosophies that the first Half-Life pioneered, putting players first as the primary design and letting them engage with the game's world at every turn. The second took this a step further and made it more interactive for players to have fun with.
Seem fit to suppress all weakened. Sincerely, a concerned. Thank you, sir.
These come from simple interactions with objects in the world, combat segments that were more than just shooting your gun, to NPC conversations that created a much better story experience than the first.
Gordon Freeman. Let me get a look at you, man.
With a myriad of different design elements that created the many levels of the game, Half-Life 2 became an important hallmark in the PC platform that is still felt to this day. And without it, we probably wouldn't have gotten some Steam! So with 2 decades gone by, and a laundry list of good video games that have pushed the industry forward, does Half-Life 2 hold its own 20 years later? Well, let's take a look, with a retrospective review of Half-Life 2. The most defining feature of the game, and while it is an FPS at heart, it approaches that concept a little differently than its brethren. Some FPS sequels are all about taking the combative shooting aspects a step further, and using that as the puzzle challenge for players to dive into. Half-Life 2 approaches their sequel iteration with regards to the world. Of course, it's still a shooter, and Gordon has to use his doctoral degree from MIT to ensure that he's using his SPAS 12 shotgun effectively. But Half-Life 2 also emphasizes interactions other than just shooting to set up its gameplay segments. The beginning sections are all about general combat and interacting with the environment to escape City 17. The segment after involves a driving sequence with your speedboat where the physics of the game allows you to perform sick backflips. Yahoo! And the Ravenholm section, though a somewhat scary horror sequence, is all about using your gravity gun to divide the local population. It's actually a very interesting design point as the gameplay changes over the course of the game. One moment you're driving out across the coast trying to avoid the antlions, the next you're an Imperial Guard commissar throwing bodies after bodies of your Imperial Antsmen at the enemies.
Glory for the first man to die! Charge!
It's easily the most distinguishable aspect about Half-Life 2 and what makes it such an interesting technical gameplay experience. It's also how the game permits you to interact with the world that further defines Half-Life 2. Being able to move objects around, break a few, or stack and push them aside thanks to the game's physics is still an immersive experience. What makes it great is that you're not just limited to moving them around for the sake of traversal, using them as weapons, defensive shields, or best friends, if you feel the need to be attached to inanimate objects.
Are you still there?
It's hard to find any other game that treats the objects of a world like Half-Life 2. As for the shooting itself, the weapons are all fun and effective for their intended design. The shotgun is extremely effective at close range. The pulse rifle feels very damage heavy at longer engagements, despite having limited ammo. It also has one of the best secondary fires in gaming history. They all have a variety of uses that serve a purpose, though the pistol feels a little weak in the pew-pew department later in the game. I'd say the combat feels good for Half-Life 2's design, but it doesn't have quite the fun multi-weapon complexity and variety of games like Doom, for example. The enemies feel varied enough to create different combat pressures for the player, from the Combine enemies shooting at you, the headcrab zombies slowly inching towards you in closed environments, as well as the headcrabs jumping towards you, and using the laser pointer rocket launcher against the gunships as if they are your house cat. A good variation of enemies always made the combat feel dynamic as the game went on. The non-regenerative health and shield system still feels like good mechanics for the player to apply risk. Having lots of health means you get to be a little more combat forward and aggressive towards the enemy, while lower health means you have to be more careful. It's a really effective system when compared to the usual standard of regenerating health because it forces the player to consider their available resources. That's not to say the regenerative health systems of games like Halo are bad, because they are designed with constant combat in mind. But for the combat design of Half-Life 2, the health and shield pack system make way more sense. The only gripe that I can really give the game is the harder difficulty. I tried playing Half-Life 2 again on this setting, and the enemies felt like hulking bullet sponges. More often than not, the most effective approach in this mode was to use your gravity gun with an object to instantly kill them, due to some of the guns just feeling a little too slow to kill. It also felt like the combat trade-off for pouring bullets into the enemy meant that I was also going to take a good chunk of damage as well. I would say that the normal difficulty feels like the intended experience, and I don't think Half-Life 2 was ever designed to be a difficult game to begin with. Though if you prefer to shoot bullets into sponges, at least you have the option. A blend of technical gameplay segments along with object and world interaction make Half-Life 2 fun to play even today. Half-Life 2 has a pretty good overall plot that the game employs. Following the events of the first game, in which Gordon Freeman escapes Black Mesa, kills the Nihilanth, or Nihilanth? Too much Elden Ring. And gets put into stasis by the G-Man, yo. He is eventually released in the future, only to find that most of Earth have been enslaved and occupied by an alien race known as the Combine. He meets up with some old friends from Black Mesa, and his adventure to hide from the Combine and take them down begins. It's an interesting blend of sci-fi and totalitarianistic oppression. Much of the plot mainly revolves around the characters and their means of finding ways to combat the Combine and take back Earth. A lot of what really gives the story its legs is through the way the world is represented. Half-Life 2 primarily uses a lot of environmental storytelling to convey its world building. When Gordon first steps out of the train, it's easy to see how oppressive the Combine are, and the citizens are very much at their mercy. However, thanks to the Resistance, all is not lost, and there's still a chance to overthrow their Combine oppressors. Also, Gordon is basically a messiah, or as I like to call him, the Freeman al-Gaib. It's an effective piece of storytelling in the sense that it is shown for the players to take in, rather than being told through narration or dialogue. A notable example is how the Combine architecture actually creeps into City 17. The alien technology of the Combine looks as if it's forcing its way through the old rural buildings of the city that show a level of invasiveness that the alien forces care so little about. Dr. Breen's monitor speeches that are meant to show sympathy towards the citizens are a good sense of irony as the people understand that he is to blame for the current state of affairs. The game also likes to utilize intrigue when it comes to further shaping the world of Half-Life. It's the concept of asking a question to answer a question to create that sense of interesting mystery. Things like how did Ravenholm become the town that it is, who are the Combine overseers, or the biggest question in the entirety of Half-Life, who the heck is the G-Man? It's a lot of intrigue that's meant to be unanswered as to leave players with their own theories and analysis to what each plot point represents. The characters in the story, though, do add to the personality of the game. Alex, Eli, Dr. Kleiner, Barney, and even Doug are all positive individuals who bring a sense of hope to an otherwise bleak world, and they help convey the sense that not all is lost.
I can't take any credit for the breakthrough, Doctor.
Nonsense. Your talents surpass your loveliness.
Let's just see if this thing works, okay?
Some might argue that they come off as a bit too cheery, but I believe them to be charismatic and confident leaders that help inspire the Resistance to not give up hope. It also just makes me like them more as characters, since they're not the depressive or manic types during end-of-the-world scenarios.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Father Grigori definitely takes the cake, though, for his unstable personality in Ravenholm.
Look to your own salvation.
Okay.
It's a well-conveyed story, one that doesn't overstay its welcome, nor oversells its plot, but also just reveals barely enough to make the world of Half-Life feel like such an interesting sci-fi setting. At its release, Half-Life 2 was considered unanimously to be one of the best-looking games from 2004, with the level of detail and interaction of both the models and the environment looking as realistic as can be. 20 years later, well, bread can't stay fresh forever, right? The age has definitely started to kick in, and a lot of it can be seen in the models and environmental details. While that's pretty obvious to see as the advancement of technology permits better graphical capabilities in recent games, there's actually something about the way Half-Life 2's overall style still feels unique. From a design standpoint, the portrayal of the locations and entities showcase what Half-Life 2's sci-fi world is all about. The older-looking city, contrasting with the advanced alien technology and architecture, visually show the difference in advancement. The Combine's airships, as well as the Striders, further invoke the sense of otherworldly beings in the Combine. The soldiers, who are all completely masked, give a sense of mystery as to what's behind it, but also makes them feel more Xeno than human. The headcrabs still look like the freakiest creatures out of Half-Life, though Lamar can be kinda cute, oddly enough. But the variation of the poison and fast headcrabs further add to the xenophobic nature of wanting to avoid them, especially where the zombies are concerned. Sure, the models look a bit rough, but the exposed innards, along with their shambling movement, can definitely unnerve first-time viewers. The antlions are pretty cool, and their bug-like stature makes them feel more insect-like, but still alien in nature. Very good Starship Trooper vibes, actually. The regular humans are definitely looking regular human, but the main cast have gotten the better texture model treatment. For a game back in 2004, the animations are very impressive, especially with the eyebrow and cheek movement to show emotions. And let's not forget Dog. Gotta love the scrappy looking robot and his gorilla looking movement.
Hi there.
Sound is on the impressive side, and every level employs a mixture of effects and music to create atmosphere. With music, Half-Life utilizes a techno soundscape for many of its set pieces, usually to create urgency in segments where action is occurring, and also to create darker and scarier moods when needed. A good fit, and one that feels uniquely Half-Life 2 for its sci-fi setting. With these sound effects, they are definitely some of the best I've heard. While a lot of them do sound very natural and appropriate to their source, like guns sounding like guns, or alien technology sounding like, well, alien technology, it's the way that each type of entity and object in this game has a very unique sound to them. One of my favorite examples are the gunships and the Striders, which actually have this almost unnatural, animalistic muffled sound to them whenever they get hurt. It's very alien-like, and makes them come off as more of a techno-organic-like being, especially with how they look. It's a really cool distinctness that Valve gave to them, and of course there are other entities with their own unique sound signature as well. Also, a very big thumbs up to Valve for being able to simulate sound being heard at different distances. It never occurred to me in my first playthrough, but the muffled explosions from the rockets hitting the gunships are different based on how far you are. It's an extremely nice sound detail, and one that the hipster audiophile in me can't help but rave about. The voice acting is also really good on all accounts. The normal NPCs sound expressive and have a good range of emotion in their voices.
Oh, I thought you were a cop.
He's one of us.
Look at him down there.
I told you they'd be coming for us next.
The main cast, though, definitely have it better, and their expressions and their moods are exemplary with showcasing each personality.
I still have nightmares about that cat. No, there's nothing to be nervous about.
What cat?
We've made major strides since then. Major strides.
What cat?
Though a bit dated, there's a lot in the way that Half-Life 2 presents itself that still looks and sounds good. Even with 20 years under its belt, Half-Life 2 still plays exceptionally well. Though visually it's showing its age, the gameplay mechanics and design feel highly relevant, and the way it approaches its philosophy of player interaction makes it such a unique experience. Really, it's the world, and how the player feels like they're involved in it at every turn. The lack of cutscenes, the ability to move objects, using tools to navigate the environment, all contribute to the incredible aspects of Gordon's adventure. Though many of Half-Life 2's physics and gameplay narratives have pretty much become standard in many of the games that came after it, there's a lot of unique features that make it worth revisiting. Not to mention, you also have episodes 1 and 2 to continue Gordon's adventure for just a little bit longer. And if you can afford it, Alex as well. Whether we see another numbered sequel in the Half-Life franchise remains to be seen. But nevertheless, Half-Life 2 still feels like an important game that's worth a revisit. But that's it for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around. There will be more games to play and more videos coming soon, so please stay tuned if you'd like to see more. For now though, I'll see you all next time.